Hello everyone and welcome back to Sports Today. The big breaking news, of course, in the world of cricket is that the ICC has put into effect a number of new rules that will govern the game going forward, and that, of course, these rules are going to come into effect from October 1st of 2022. That means that, yes, these rules will be applicable in the T20I World Cup that is set to take place in less than a month's time. Now, what exactly are these new rules and how is it that they will affect the game going forward? Now, as for what the rules are, we'll go over everything one by one. But a lot of these rules you would have actually seen before because, as you know, a lot of these rules were in fact applied in the 2022 IPL and have also been applied in other domestic leagues around the world. But we'll quickly go over the rules in some detail, analyze what it means for the game going forward, and you can let me know whether or not you agree with these rules or whether or not you think that these rules are, of course, necessary for the game going forward. So without further ado, let's check in on what the rules are. Now, one of the main rules that has changed is, of course, the fact that when a new batsman comes to the crease, now they must always be the one taking strike. This was a rule that, generally speaking, was applied, but in certain cases, if a batsman crossed, say for instance, if it was a high catch and the batsman crossed sides, then the new batsman would not take strike. However, going forward, the new batsman will be the one taking strike even if these two batsmen changed ends. Now, of course, we know for a fact that this is something we've seen a lot of times happen in games, that, you know, someone will hit the ball really high and then they'll end up changing ends, and then what happens is that the non-striker will generally be the new batsman. To prevent that from happening, now the rule has been amended, it's been modified, and it's been made clear that no matter what happens, the new batsman will be the one who takes strike when there is a dismissal that is made. Now, of course, there is other rules that have been changed. In fact, as you'll see, there are quite a few other rules. So let's quickly just go over them. One of the other rules that has been made permanent, which has been in effect for quite some time now, is that there will be no more use of saliva on the ball. Now, this was something that was, generally speaking, put in place as a temporary measure once cricket actually resumed action internationally and in domestic leagues, once the COVID-19 lockdowns around the world were starting to ease up a little bit. In the middle of 2020, when people felt that it was safe to resume the sport, of course, at that time you had bio bubbles and no fan attendance and all of that. But one of the major components of the playing conditions was that you couldn't use spit to shine the ball. The main reason for this, of course, was that the virus could actually be transmitted via saliva, and you didn't want to risk the athletes. You wanted to put them in as little risk as possible. So in order to shine the ball, athletes were generally using their own sweat. Now, the ICC has found that this is in fact an effective way of shining the ball, and that there's no real difference whether you use saliva or whether you use sweat. So in the best interest of everyone, they banned the usage of saliva permanently. This was only a temporary measure that was put in place during, of course, COVID. Now, however, this is going to be how it goes going forward. No more saliva to shine the ball. It's only going to be sweat, which you are allowed to use to actually get that shine on the new or old ball. And of course, there have also been rule changes for, of course, the amount of time that a batsman can take to settle in. Now, usually speaking, when a batsman comes in for an ODI or a T20I match, they were previously allowed to take up to 3 minutes to get ready. So they could take 3 minutes to actually kind of, mark their guard. They could take that much time to get ready, see what the field was like. You had up to 3 minutes, and the bowling team, the fielding team, had no choice but, in fact, wait. You were allowed 3 minutes. However, now, under the new rules in ODIs and tests, you will only be allowed 2 minutes, and that is, of course, 120 seconds. For T20Is, that rule had in fact been amended a while back. Your batsman was only allowed 90 seconds, and that's true even now. Batsmen will only be allowed 90 seconds, but in ODIs and tests, they're going to be allowed a shortened time. Previously, as I said, 3 minutes. Now it's only 2 minutes. Obviously, this is something that's being done in a bit to kind of speed up the game, and this is in fact a bit of a theme of these rules. As you'll see going forward, the main aim is to try and make the game quicker as it goes on, rather than actually slowing down the flow of the game, because even the authorities are aware that too often than not, there can be a lot of time wasting that happens in between matches, and games are going very long. So they're actually doing whatever it is they can to ensure the teams stick to the times given to them. Another rule, of course, is pertaining to, and this is something of a modern problem, is that batsmen are not actually allowed to play the a shot when going off the pitch. Now, in this case, nowadays you see a lot of times batsmen will tend to shuffle around in the crease, and sometimes they can get very, very close to going off the pitch. So the new rule says that a batsman, if he has to play a shot, at least some part of his body, whether it be just even one leg, has to be on the pitch for it to be considered a legal delivery as such. So if that doesn't happen, so if the batsman's gone fully off the pitch and then they're playing a shot, then the runs won't count, it'll be called a dead ball. And in fact, if the bowling team forces the batsman to kind of go off the pitch in some way, or of course if the bowler himself lands the ball outside of the pitch, will be called a no ball. So this is something that also has been set in stone now. So hopefully we'll see a lot less extreme degrees of shuffling from batsmen, because now, of course, as it says, if they play a shot, some part of theirs has to be on the pitch itself. Another rule, of course, and this is pertaining to the fielding team. So unfair movement of fielders is something that we oftentimes hear about. You don't want to see batsman is getting ready and a fielder is trying to distract them. So now what has been put in is that if there's any kind of unfair movement as is deemed by the umpires, then the ball will be called dead. And to make the punishment even more severe, if the umpire so deems, he can award a total of 5 penalty runs to the batting team. So bowling teams and fielding teams will have to be extra careful now when it comes to how it is that they choose to, they cannot in any way be found distracting the batsman with some sort of an unfair movement during the time when the ball is being bowled. Of course, you're allowed to move once the ball is dead, and of course before the ball is bowled. But when the ball is being bowled, and of course when the batsman is getting ready to face the ball, you're not allowed any kind of movement. If that happens, ball will be called dead and 5 penalty runs will be awarded. So they've actually clamped down on any kind of movement during the time when the ball is being delivered. And perhaps one of the most interesting things, and in case any of you are wondering why it is that I had that particular display image of Ashwin and Jos Buttler when the video started, it's because of this particular rule. It is that the running out of a non-striker, or what in popular parlance is known as monketing, has now been made a fully operational part of the rules. Now, previously it had a very interesting, let's say, positioning in the rules, wherein it was allowed, but it was looked down upon as an unfair play. In fact, a lot of the reasons why most batsmen or most bowlers would not try to bring about this sort of an dismissal was because it was not only seen as unfair within the rules, but it was also seen as going against the spirit of the game, whatever that means. Well, now no arguments about spirit of the game and no arguments about it being an unfair play, because in the new rules it is now categorized as a run out. So if the bowler is in his delivery stride and he finds that the non-striker is out of the crease, he's well within his rights to stop and whip the bails off. It will be considered a legitimate dismissal. No need for any warnings, no more debates, hopefully, about spirit of the game. And of course, this isn't the only rule regarding running out the non-striker, because running out the non-striker is only allowed if you're, of course, doing it in the monkered way, which means in your delivery stride you stop and you whip the bails off. You are not allowed to actually kind of throw the ball back with force if you've reached forward in your delivery stride. So in essence, all you're allowed to do is keep the ball in hand and get the bails off. If you throw the ball back to the non-striker's end, whether to the wicket side where the non-striker's end is, it won't be considered a legitimate dismissal. In fact, the ball will be called a dead ball and the bowler will have to re-bowl it. So the issue surrounding monketing at least has been put to rest, if you ask me. They've disallowed the fact that you can throw the ball, because that way it shows that the bowler is, of course, in his full delivery stride, but they can monked, which means pull out of the delivery midway and just whip the bails off. This is the one major rule that has been put in. Of course, there's another very interesting rule, and this is it's really a case of last but not the least, is this one particular rule that has been brought in and will be implemented in ODI cricket post the finishing of the 2023 World Cup Super League matches. Now, of course, the Super League matches is the, the point system that is being used to determine who qualifies automatically for the World Cup and who gets to play the qualifiers, and the rule which will be coming into play in ODI cricket post the 2023 Super League will be the in-match fielding penalty. Now again, this is a rule that would be familiar to a lot of you. We saw it happen during the Asia Cup. In essence, it means that if the team bowling, if the fielding team does not complete their quota of overs by the given time period, then they can actually be asked to bring in one fielder and finish the remaining overs, however many that may be, with one less fielder outside on the circle. Now that is of course something that will impact teams in the death, because generally speaking that is a time when the batting team will look to go all guns blazing, especially if they have wickets in hand, and you want as many fielders out on the boundaries as you are allowed to keep. So according to the new rules, if you haven't finished your allocated overs by the given time, you will be asked to bring in one fielder. And this is something that during the Asia Cup we saw happen a lot. In fact, one India-Pakistan match actually, it ended up costing the team because of that, because you had to bring in that fielder, and that made all the difference in the world, because of course it meant you had one less fielder on the boundary line. Now obviously these are the major rules that have been brought about as changes. Generally speaking, as I said, the focus is not only on making the game clearer, but it's also on ensuring that you don't spend too much unnecessary time. Again, remember, cricket, even in its shortest format, is at least 3.5 to 4 hours long. That is by modern standards a fairly long game, and you don't want to be spending more time than is absolutely necessary. You want to be respecting not only the paying fans, but also the broadcasters who are airing your matches, so you don't want it to go on forever. These rules are of course geared towards just that. It's ensuring that of course teams will finish their overs on time, and that they won't be doing too much time wasting, not just the fielding team but even the batting team, as we covered, but that also you've simplified some of the rules. You've removed the let's say the bogey, or like the kind of bad natured attachment that people had to the bunker. So you can do that. So there's been a lot of clarification of rules, and for me personally, I welcome a lot of these rule changes. But what do you guys think? Do you think these rules are good for the future of cricket? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the notifications bell so that you know when it is we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Don't also forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and last but not least, download the SportsTech app for more such news related analysis and of course breaking news updates from the world of sport. Thank you all once again for joining us. I hope to see you through the day, but bye bye for now.